very softly. "And pray, ma'am," said the Sergeant, removing his gaze from the tree with a jerk, "how might you be feeling, ma'am?" "Much the same as usual, thank you," she answered, smiling like a girl for all her white hair, as the Sergeant's eyes met hers. "You look," said he, pausing to cough behind his hand again, "you look blooming, ma'am, if you'll allow the expression, blooming, as you ever do, ma'am." "I'm an old woman, Sergeant, as well you know," sighed Miss Priscilla, shaking her head. "Old, ma'am!" repeated the Sergeant, "old, ma'am! Nothing of the sort, ma'am, age has nothing to do with it. 'Tisn't the years as count, we aren't any older than we feel, eh, sir?" "Of course not," answered Bellew. "Nor than we look, eh, sir?" "Certainly not, Sergeant," answered Bellew. "And she, sir, she don't look a day older than 35, said Bellew. "Exactly, sir, very true, my own opinion, 35 exactly, sir."
"Sergeant!" said Miss Priscilla, bending over her work again, "Sergeant, your hat!"
The Sergeant, hereupon, removed the distracting head gear altogether, and sat with it upon his knee, staring hard at the tree again. Then, all at once, with a sudden gesture, he drew a large, silver watch from his pocket, rather as if it were some weapon of offence, looked at it, listened to it, and then, nodding his head, rose to his feet. "Must be going," he said, standing very straight, and looking down at little Miss Priscilla, "though sorry as ever, must be going, ma'am. Miss Priscilla, ma'am, good day to you!" And he stretched out his hand to her with a sudden, jerky movement. Miss Priscilla paused in her sewing, and looked up at him with her youthful smile.
"Must you go so soon, Sergeant? Then good bye, until to morrow."
And she laid her very small hand in his big palm. The Sergeant stared down at it as though he were greatly minded to raise it to his lips, instead of doing which, he dropped it, suddenly, and turned to Bellew. "Sir, I am proud to have met you. Sir, there is a poor crippled soldier as I know, his cottage is very small and humble, sir, but if you ever feel like dropping in on him, sir, by day, or night, he will be honoured, sir, honoured. And that's me, Sergeant Richard Appleby, late of the 19th Hussars, at your service, sir." Saying which, he put on his hat, stiff armed, wheeled, and strode away through the orchard, jingling his imaginary spurs louder than ever.
"Well?"
enquired Miss Priscilla in her quick, bright way.
"Well, Mr. Bellew, what do you think of him? First impressions are always best, at least I think so. What do you think of Sergeant Appleby?"
"I think he's a splendid fellow," said Bellew, looking after the Sergeant's upright figure.
"A very foolish old fellow, I think, and as stiff as one of the ramrods of one of his own guns,"
said Miss Priscilla, but her clear, blue eyes were very soft, and tender as she spoke. "And as fine a soldier as a man, I'm sure," said Bellew.
"Why yes, he was a good soldier, once upon a time, I believe. He won the Victoria Cross for doing something or other that was very brave, and he wears it with all his other medals, pinned on the inside of his coat. Oh yes, he was a fine soldier once, but he's a very foolish old soldier now, I think, and as stiff as a ramrod of one of his own guns. But I'm glad you like him, Mr. Bellew, and he will be proud, and happy for you to call and see him at his cottage. And now, I suppose, it is 11:30, isn't it?"
"Yes, just half past," nodded Bellew, glancing at his watch.
"Exact to time as usual," said Miss Priscilla. "I don't think the Sergeant has missed a minute, or varied a minute in the last 5 years. You see, he is such a very methodical man, Mr. Bellew."
"Why then, does he come every day at the same hour?"
"Every day," nodded Miss Priscilla. "It has become a matter of habit with him."
"Ah?" said Bellew, smiling.
"If you were to ask me why he comes, I should answer that I fancy it is to look at the peaches. Dear me, Mr. Bellew, what a very foolish old soldier he is, to be sure!"
Saying which, pretty, bright eyed Miss Priscilla laughed again, folded up her work, settled it in the basket with a deft little pat, and rising, took a small crutch stick from where it had lain concealed, and then, Bellew saw that she was lame.
"Oh yes, I'm a cripple, you see." She nodded. "Oh, very, very lame. My ankle, you know. That is why I came here. The big world didn't want a poor, lame old woman. That is why Miss Anthea made me her aunt, God bless her. No, thank you, I can carry my basket. So you see, he has lost an arm, his right one, and I am lame in my foot. Perhaps that is why. Hi ho! How beautifully the blackbirds are singing this morning, to be sure!" Chapter 8